How we doing, everybody? Let's go. Give me 1 second. Gotta wait for a little bit. I'm dropping. We'll get right on into it. Welcome back, everybody, to WeSide 91.5 FM, Richmond's Public Radio. I'm Tyler Smith, host of Keeping It Real with Tyler Smith. We got a full slate for you guys going on today. Today is Friday, the 13th, but it's January, so no worries out there today. A little bit cold outside, 46 degrees. Feels like 46, but let's be honest, I've been out there today along with you guys. It feels a whole lot colder than 46 degrees out there. But we got a great weekend ahead of us, ending the week here on a Friday on the drive home, maybe going out to get some dinner with friends, family, or whatever you're doing here. 4 o'clock live. If you're joining us, catching us later on, hey, always glad to have you with us. But nonetheless, it is Friday. We got a great NFL weekend ahead of us. This past week had a college football championship game. Talked about that earlier on in my channel. We got a little bit to talk about that. Did some content for you guys here on the radio side. Didn't get to catch that, but got some great takes out there. Was shocked Georgia beat TCU that bad. Expected TCU to get the loss in that one, but did not expect it to be 65-7. But nonetheless, we got a full slate of NFL games coming on this weekend. Super Wildcard Weekend, and those you guys will know. We got games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night this week. So just a whole lot going on. Really excited to see what happens here. Running solo today. No one tagging in with me today. So we're just going to have to join me talking your ear off right here for the next 2 hours or so. But we're going to get right on into it. I mean, we have a great NFL weekend ahead of us, but we can't go too far without acknowledging what is called Black Monday, commonly known throughout the NFL. But those of you guys who don't know what Black Monday is, it is the day of firings across the NFL. On Monday, several coaches throughout the NFL, head coaches, assistants, coordinators, front office personnel, and so on and so forth, were released and let go from their jobs. And that is the reason why it's Black Monday. But what that means, as sad as it is, people losing their jobs, families having to pick up and move, it's a start for new opportunity, new hope, things like that for you NFL fans out there. Potentially seeing Jeff Saturday be a familiar face for the Indianapolis Colts. Who knows? Indianapolis Colts have interviewed a handful of coaches, Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, some in-house candidates, special teams coordinators, et cetera, et cetera. But the Indianapolis Colts trying to make something happen here. Be ready to see the Indianapolis Colts hopefully make a big splash higher here, maybe even go somewhere about trading for a number 1 overall pick, something of the sort. Do something to help this team, maybe get another top 3 pick. Do something. This team needs some help for the Indianapolis Colts faithful. But nonetheless, the Indianapolis Colts, they're not in the playoffs. So that's why we're not talking about them right now. We're going to do some ton of NFL offseason coverage on this show. We're going to be talking all sorts of things. And then we're going to shift into college basketball season as well. College basketball season gets started up around this time of year as soon as the NFL starts slowing down. So we'll see a lot more NCAA basketball coverage from us and so on. It's going to be a heck of a ride here. So stay with us and keep running with us. But we're going to take a moment. We're going to preview what is one of the more overwhelming games, I would say, to some fans, because it's going to be a little overwhelming with the fact that you had the Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers, inter-division, inter-conference, obviously, because we're just opening up the playoffs here, so we're still in the same conferences, but the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers play in the NFC West, so 2 teams that see each other often, and a lot of fans think this game will not live up to standards, and I'm not too sure about it either. This game is either going to go 2 directions, and I know you're going to say, well, Tyler, any game can go 2 directions. It could be Tyler, it could be a blowout. But this game really lives and dies by that one here. 2 teams within the same division, so they see each other a lot. Pete Carroll of the Seattle Seahawks, great coach Kyle Shanahan, great coach of the San Francisco 49ers. You have 2 teams out here that are willing and ready to battle for the playoffs. 49ers are a team destined for a Super Bowl, many do say, but they're on their 3rd-string quarterback, a man that we've talked about on this program here quite a bit. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. Mr. Irrelevant. That is the man. That is the nickname that goes to the final draft pick of every single NFL draft every single year. But this is probably the first time that Mr. Irrelevant is relevant to an extent. Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, who now has been dubbed as Mr. Irrelevant, Mr. Relevant himself. He has to lead the San Francisco 49ers team to a Super Bowl now. Third string quarterback at the beginning of the year behind Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo, a guy who's played in Super Bowls, a guy who's been an NFL veteran for quite some time. And you have Trey Lance, who the San Francisco 49ers traded the entire farm for. They gave up draft picks. They gave up everything that they had to try and land Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. And here we are. Brock Purdy out of Iowa State. A guy who was not the most flashy quarterback in all of college football. A guy Nick Saban said no thank you to. Shot him down infamously during his high school days. But now Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, gets a chance to go out, show off in a playoff game. Brock Purdy outwielded Tom Brady, the GOAT. Tom Brady has been in the NFL longer than Brock Purdy has been alive, and Brock Purdy beat him in an NFL game. I know Brock Purdy isn't the only reason why the San Francisco 49ers, beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quite a few weeks ago, but there's a lot that goes into that, and being a quarterback of that team counts for something. San Francisco 49ers take on the Seattle Seahawks, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a 1:30 kickoff out there on the West Coast in Santa Clara, California. It's going to be on Fox. Only game going on that 4:30 window, so everybody can be able to watch that nationally, which is very nice. A lot of these games, you don't get to see a lot of these West Coast teams if you're an East Coaster like myself, because they just get blocked out by the East Coast squads a lot of the time. You always really catch these teams. They're playing late, playing against your team, or playing in that primetime slot on a Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday night. So let me tell you about the Seattle Seahawks a little bit, and then we'll slide over to the 49ers. Seattle Seahawks, 9-8 on the season. Quarterback Geno Smith. Very interesting there at the beginning of the season. You had a man in the name of Drew Lock, who you got in a trade when you got rid of your franchise quarterback and Super Bowl winning quarterback in Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was traded away for a lot, and I mean a lot, to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are not in the postseason right now. The Seattle Seahawks are. Geno Smith beats out Brock Purdy, beats out the rumors of the Seattle Seahawks going out and landing another quarterback, whether that be Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo, early on in this season and throughout training camp. The Seattle Seahawks, a young man named Kenneth Walker III, their running back, out of Michigan State, the electric running back out of Michigan State a year ago. Not this college season, the last college season. A man who tormented my Michigan Wolverines, and not only the Michigan Wolverines, but the entire college football landscape for quite some time in the green and white. And then you shift over to the wide receiver front. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, an absolute unit at wide receiver. 6'3", 6'4", 225 to 250 pounds, and chiseled pure muscle, and runs a 4.40. A great receiver who was dubbed Baby Calvin Johnson, Baby Megatron, because Calvin Johnson, arguably the greatest receiver of all time to many, just one of those guys, just jump ball guy, played for the Detroit Lions, could go up and make any route, go run any catch. And he was going to come down with it no matter what he did. If it was a route, if it was a jump ball, if it was a slant, if it was a streak, whatever it was, that man was coming down with it one way or another. DK Metcalf is eerily similar. And then you shift over to Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett, that route runner guy, a little bit more crafty guy. Great hands, great hands. He never drops passes. He's an absolute stud on this Seattle Seahawks team. And then you shift over to the defensive side of things. The Seattle Seahawks defense isn't the greatest defense that we've seen in the NFL. That's probably going to go to the 49ers. It's not the Legion of Boom, which the Seattle Seahawks last had when they went on a playoff run with Russell Wilson, with guys like Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, Michael Bennett, and many more. The Seattle Seahawks defense is more of a team-oriented defense, less about the star players, but they're still going to be able to get something done to an extent here. And then we shift over to the more household names, San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers have been a playoff team, a dominant team over the last few years. But there's something different about the San Francisco 49ers teams And I'm not talking about the quarterback position alone. Yes, the quarterback position looks different. You have Brock Purdy and you have Mr. Irrelevant starting. You don't have Trey Lance. You don't have Jimmy Garoppolo. You have a 7th round draft pick, the last pick in the NFL draft, as your quarterback in this one. And he's been your quarterback over the last little bit of a stretch here. And you have, in my opinion, one of the most underrated, one of the most electric running backs, not even running back, players in the NFL, Christian McCaffrey out of Stanford. Christian McCaffrey finally gets an opportunity to be on a team that is halfway competent, and not only halfway competent, but a team that has a head coach who is one of the best head coaches in the league right now and knows how to use him every facet of the way. He's able to get Christian McCaffrey in moments into opportunities where he can make things happen on his own and scheme him up where he doesn't have to make a play every time. Christian McCaffrey can get open via his head coach instead of him getting himself open every single time. So that allows him to be more dangerous in yards after the catch, once he gets the ball, once he gets his touches. And he's also not being relied on to get 75 touches a game, 50 touches a game, and always be the primary option on every single play. And the San Francisco 49ers have probably the second best tight end in all of football right now behind Travis Kelce, who you can argue is arguably one of the best tight ends in all of NFL history, shortly behind Rob Gronkowski, in my personal opinion. But you have George Kittle, who can block, who can run, and he can catch. He's a dynamic threat for this San Francisco 49ers team. He can do a whole lot. He can do a whole lot and hurt you a whole lot. You have to pick your poison in this one. And did I mention a man named Deebo Samuel yet of the San Francisco 49ers? Deebo Samuel, a wide receiver running back hybrid. He can do a little bit of everything. It's pretty impressive. He does a lot. He can get out and run. He can get out and go. He can do a whole lot. Sometimes they run him with the ball. Sometimes they pass him the ball. It just depends. But he's a guy, you have to know where he's at. You always need to know, where is Deebo Samuel on this football field? Then you switch to the other side of the ball. Deebo Samuel. No longer on – we're talking defense here. We're not talking Deebo Samuel. You have this Fred Warner and Nick Bosa led defense. Nick Bosa, one of the Bosa brothers. His brother plays for the Chargers. Both of them played at Ohio State. That might be how you know the name. But Nick Bosa is a legit edge threat. He's one of the best edge threats rushing the passer in the NFL. He's someone that needs to be accounted for every single down. He's a 3-down, 4-down lineman. And especially in the playoffs, that's what's important. You want your best players on the field as much as possible. And Bosa's a guy who can play 3 downs. He can play 4 downs if a team's going for it on 4th down late in the game. And that's what's extremely important. He's going to get some sacks. He's going to be dangerous. He's going to get double teamed this weekend. And that's going to allow his teammates to eat. Then you have a man of the name Fred Warner, the Mike linebacker of this unit. Fred Warner, all-pro selection again this year by the players and by the media. A man who is dangerous in the middle of the field. He can stop the run. He can cover and pass. Noted by Aaron Rodgers as one of the best young defensive players in this league. Just a year ago, probably around this time actually, a year ago to this day almost, when the Green Bay Packers faced off with the San Francisco 49ers in the conference championship. The San Francisco 49ers team's legit. They're going to be able to cause problems. They're going to cause nightmares for the Seattle Seahawks team led by Geno Smith. A lot of people are saying that, Seattle might get it done. I'm not too sure if Seattle can get it done, in my personal opinion. The fairy tale ride might come to an end. Geno Smith, no doubt, has secured a spot as a starter in this league, and he should be the comeback player of the year when the NFL has their awards ceremony. But in this one, the San Francisco 49ers are my pick. The odds opened up this week. San Francisco is a -10 favorite, so that means San Francisco winning by 10 to 11 points, something around there. Somewhere between that 9 to 11 mark, winning by a touchdown and a field goal. 2 touchdowns maybe even. Now it's 9.5. But I think the San Francisco 49ers will win this game big. This game might get a little boring towards the end. I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. This game might get boring. Brock Purdy probably not going to throw the ball a lot in this one. Jimmy Garoppolo once had a conference championship win where he only threw the ball 6 times. Granted, it wasn't the greatest weather ever, but it also wasn't the worst weather we've ever seen in an NFL game. There was a game between the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots that had more pass attempts than a game in Green Bay when it was a little cold and a little snowy, where in Buffalo it was negative 25, 45-mile-an-hour winds, and snow. So I think you're going to see Brock Purdy turn around and hand the ball off a lot in this one, or make a lot of little short screen passes to get their playmakers the ball in space. It's going to be a Kyle Shanahan win, in my personal opinion, not a Brock Purdy win. Expect Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel to have big numbers in this one. One of them may fall short, but that means the other two are going to eat like crazy. But the San Francisco 49ers are just too much. They really are too much, in my personal opinion. I think the San Francisco 49ers are a team that I'm confident in to make it to the Super Bowl. The San Francisco 49ers will run the table in this one, I think. Not only in this game, not only in the wild card, but when it gets to the divisional, when it gets to the conference championship round, and so on and so forth. So I think the Seattle Seahawks joyride comes to an end. But nonetheless, the Seattle Seahawks had a good season, a very impressive season. No one really expected them to be here. I really hate to say that, but no one expected the Seattle Seahawks team to be here. The Seattle Seahawks team struggled all year long. I mean, they struggled at the beginning of times and looked in training camp. This was going to be a team that maybe wins 4 games, picked and predicted to finish last in their division, let alone the conference. Like the division. The division, they were picked last. And that means not looking so great in the conference. But here we are, the Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs, making things happen. But it just comes to an end. Cinderella's ride always comes to an end. And I think that's where I see Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. The San Francisco 49ers will win this game. I believe they will cover this game as well. The first half will be interesting. Third quarter might be pretty fun to watch. In the fourth quarter and late third quarter, you're just going to watch an offensive masterpiece from Shanahan, dominating the Seattle Seahawks defense and just moving the ball all over the place with a limited playbook as well, I'd imagine, in the fourth and third quarters because they'll be up that big. They will close the playbook down, not give away more film than what is needed and or necessary for the next round. Then we slide over to our next little slot here. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, this is a game that I'm not too sure about. This is the game that makes me feel very unsure. This game feels uncomfortable to me because it really is. 2 quarterbacks, never in the playoffs before. Justin Herbert out of Oregon, who's been in the NFL for a few years now, and Trevor Lawrence entering year 2 under his second head coach, a Super Bowl winning head coach nonetheless, and Doug Peterson. This Los Angeles Chargers, if you remember last year, had an opportunity to make the playoffs. All they needed to do was win or tie versus the Las Vegas Raiders. There was a play late in this one. It was a third down, I believe. And the Raiders sat there and were like, listen, we're either going to run this ball and we're going to kick a field goal and win. We're going to run the ball, get the first down, kick a field goal to win. Or if we don't get it, we'll just let the clock run out and we'll both walk out of here with a tie. The Los Angeles Chargers put out arguably the worst run defense I've ever seen to stop the ball and got gashed for about 15 yards, allowing Derek Carr to let the clock drip to the final second, call a timeout to allow Daniel Carlson the opportunity to kick a field goal to send the Raiders into the playoffs. But what's even better about this story, Daniel Carlson didn't need to make the kick to send the Raiders to the playoffs. They already had it secured. It was a tie game. He made the kick to eliminate the Los Angeles Chargers. There have been videos from this game where you can see Justin Herbert on the sideline mouthing, "I've never wanted to tie so bad in my life." There were stories throughout that week. Will both teams sit there and kneel the ball all game so they both can make the playoffs. That did not happen. And now the Los Angeles Chargers, coached by Brandon Staley, are now into the playoffs. They have a shot to do something special here. They have a shot to do something that has been done in their franchise in quite some time. Make a deep playoff run. It hasn't happened since the Phillip Rivers days, if not even longer. Brandon Staley, a man out of the University of Dayton, head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, taking on the Doug Peterson-led Jacksonville Jaguars. What is quite worrisome for the Los Angeles Chargers is their star wide receiver, Mike Williams, the jump ball threat, the deep threat of this team. One of Justin Herbert's favorite receiving weapons is out of this one with a back contusion. Took a massive hit a few weeks ago to his lower back and has been hurting ever since. And then played in their last game, which was a meaningless game. A game where it really didn't affect their playoff seeding whatsoever because they did not win their division. They knew they were going on the road no matter what. They could have rested him. But instead, they decided to put him into the game, play him all game long, and he took a shot to his lower back once again. And now he is out of this one. So now you have a Los Angeles Chargers team going on the road, never been to the playoffs before, after all the drama from years past, now entering the playoffs without one of their best offensive threats. Don't forget, though, a man named Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, a wide receiver, an older wide receiver. He's aging, but he's a crafty route runner indeed. Keenan Allen can do some special things if you give him the opportunity to, and he's going to have to show up and ball out this week. He has to be showing up on every single snap, every single down, doing anything and everything he can for this Chargers offense. But what stinks for him now, he's going to get double teamed. Well, if you have Mike Williams out there, he can't get double teamed. You have to double team one of them, and the other one's is not going to be double teamed, so they get open. But realistically, if you double team a receiver and leave another star receiver on the other side of the field open, it's going to eat, and then you just keep bouncing back and forth. So most teams just end up just going single man coverage and maybe having the safety shadow over to help. But now you can't have a safety shadow over to help like that. You get the luxury now if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars to just double team the guy all game. Send a quarter on him and then go play football. And that's what you're going to do here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that's going to hurt the Los Angeles Chargers a lot more than they think. You do have Austin Eckler, one of the best and most talented running backs in the NFL this season. A guy who's a receiving back but can still run the ball with great skill. Out of Western Colorado, a walk-on to the Chargers, an undrafted free agent is what we call it here in the NFL. He was an undrafted free agent years ago. Now Austin Eckler has an opportunity to win his franchise a playoff game. The Los Angeles Chargers wins this weekend. It's simply because of Austin Eckler and no man else. If Austin Eckler goes and balls out, gashes the defense, runs the ball hard, gets some receiving threat out there, I think they can win this game. But I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars are too much. The Jacksonville Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence. They have Christian Kirk. Travis Etienne is finally now heating up and catching his stride. The college teammates out of Clemson in the backfield at the Jaguars of Jacksonville. They have to do this. They have to do this, and they have to win. This is a golden opportunity, a culture-shifting game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I really hope they can pull it off. But nonetheless, we're going to see a great game between two young quarterbacks who are going to be around this league for quite some time. The better question, though, is who's going to have the better supporting cast in this one? On paper, it looks like the Chargers. But with injuries, with lack of ability after those injuries happen, I think we might see a Jacksonville Jaguars team who's worse on paper step up and win this one. I really think we will. And then we shift into the Sunday slate. The Sunday slate. Highmark Stadium, Orchard Park, New Jersey. The Miami Dolphins. No Tua. Teddy Bridgewater, going to be a backup because of how banged up he is. And now they're going to start Skylar Thompson again. Got his first start last week with the Dolphins, and it was an interesting one to say the least. It was an extremely interesting game to see happen because you don't want to lose your quarterback this late in the year. You never want to lose your starting quarterback, your franchise quarterback, this late in the season. And then you also lost your backup too. Your backup was hurt. So your backup's hurt and banged up, and he's having to play. Last week, we saw a game ending the score of 11-6. The Dolphins beat the Jets 11-6. Yes, you heard me right, 11-6. No touchdowns for the Dolphins on the offensive side of the ball. You saw in this one 3 field goals in the first 3 quarters. Then 2 field goals in the fourth quarter and a safety. 11-6. A scoreline you never see in the NFL. Skylar Thompson, in his first start, 20 of 31, 152 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. What's a little more worrisome, now questionable, you have Cedric Wilson, the receiver for the Dolphins, Brandon Shell, an offensive tackle, Taron Armstead, your left tackle for the Miami Dolphins, Kendall Lamb, another tackle, and Bradley Chubb. So you not only are the Dolphins depleted at the quarterback position and onto their third string quarterback, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive linemen banged up in this one. Banged up enough that they're questionable on the injury report, with one being doubtful. And you also can't forget the running back you signed in free agency from your coach's old team, Raheem Mostert. He's out in this one too. And then you flip over to the other side of you have the Bills, who are getting healthier, playing inspired football, playing for their brother, DeMar Hamlin, who was recently released from Bills General Hospital after being transported from Cincinnati Level 1 Trauma Medical Center to Buffalo this week to be let out. I want to say yesterday, if not yesterday, Wednesday, the day before, but just recently being released. I'm sure he will be in attendance of this one, and that will rally the troops into the Buffalo Bills getting a win this weekend, which is quite phenomenal if I do say so myself. Then we shift another gear, seeing that their defensive tackle, Jordan Phillips, is injured with his shoulder, and then you see a questionable wide receiver, Isaiah McKenzie. Isaiah McKenzie is a player on this team, a name you probably don't hear about, but a guy who's integral to this offense and very important. It just really stinks to see guys go down near playoff time. But the Buffalo Bills are going to win this one, in my personal opinion. The Buffalo Bills are just too much, I think. The Buffalo Bills have the ability in this game to just flat out dominate. It doesn't help that the Dolphins are hurt. I would have picked them to win this game even if they were healthy, I think. I would have picked the Bills to win this one. But now we see the Dolphins minus 10.5. The Buffalo Bills minus 10.5. Opening line shifting now to 13.5 points. That means Vegas thinks the Buffalo Bills are going to kill the Dolphins. And I think I'm on the same book with Vegas. And we'll talk more about picks and predictions. I think you know where I'm going with this one. Then you have the 4:30 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. 4:30 p.m. kickoff, you have the Giants taking on the Minnesota Vikings. A rematch. The Giants Played the Vikings earlier this year, and it took a 61-yard field goal miracle by Greg Joseph of the Minnesota Vikings to kick a 61-yard field goal to get the win as the time expired. This line opened up at Minnesota -3, and it stays Minnesota -3. And what's kind of awesome about this, if you're a New York Giants fan, you're an underdog. You're going on the road, and you've done well in matchups this year where you play a team the second time. You played the Commanders earlier this year, struggled against them. You get them a second time, you come out and dominate every single aspect of that ball game. And you have a New York Giants team under Brian Daboll, new head coach, my personal pick for coach of the year. They're 9-7-1. They're in the playoffs. And this is a New York Giants team that very likely can win the division next year because the NFC East never seems to have repeat divisional winners. And I'd rather take the New York Giants as divisional winners over the Dallas Cowboys. And they're taking on the Minnesota Vikings, the new Minnesota Vikings, the 13-4 Minnesota Vikings under head coach Kevin O'Connell. The best thing for the Minnesota Vikings to hear this week is that your offensive line is getting healthier. What hurt the Minnesota Vikings so badly in that embarrassing loss to the Green Bay Packers was that their offensive line was banged up. They were playing a backup center, so it just switched up everything. The center was nervous. They had to change snap counts. They weren't getting the protections right. They were just lighting Kirk Cousins up, and just nothing was clicking, and it didn't help that Jair Alexander was on the other side of the ball versus Justin Jefferson. And now we have to continue working. We have to continue building forward if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan. Now your biggest question mark, Harrison Smith. Can we get Harrison Smith back? You want Harrison Smith back. He's your stud safety. He's a guy, a veteran, a captain, a leader, and you never want to see those guys stepping away from the field due to injury. But this one, just taking a peek at it, you have the Giants when they played the Vikings. They played the Vikings earlier this year, 27-24. Tight game, as I mentioned a minute ago, came down to the field goal. And now, if you're the Giants, you just have to adjust the game plan. You have to tweak the game plan. And if you're the Vikings, you do the same, but you have to do more, I think, because it is so hard to beat a team twice. It is so hard to beat a team twice. That's what the moral of this is. And that's why I'm leaning towards the Giants in this one a little bit. The Giants in the last game that they played just had a really slow start. Didn't get any points in the first. Only had 7 in the first half after a 0-point first quarter. And they turned it on late, but it wasn't just enough because they snuck a field goal in at the last minute. If you're the Vikings, you gotta try and capitalize on Daniel Jones and his youngness and his naiveness to the playoff moment. The Vikings need to get interceptions, a fumble, something. They must win the turnover battle in this one. Daniel Jones needs to be held to under 300 yards passing, preferably under 275, 250. Saquon Barkley can't have a game over 75 yards rushing. You just have to play stifling defense because this Vikings offense is good enough. This Vikings offense is elite and talented when they want to be and when they are clicking. But they cannot let this be a close game. It's going to come down to the defensive side of the ball for the Vikings and protecting the ball for the Vikings. The Vikings have the worst point spread, point margin in like NFL history for a team being there as talented and as good as they are. There was a moment this year when they were sitting at, I want to say 13. They're 13-4 now, so I want to say when they had 12. What is it? Yeah, they're 13-4. Yeah, excuse me. Got a little brain fart there for a moment. They're 13-4. But when they were 11-2, I think, or something of the sort, their point spread, they were only, I think they were -1, -5, one of the two. That means that they have allowed their opponents to score more points than they have, and they had 11 or 12 wins. So that means there are games where they either throttle teams, they win super tight, or they're getting absolutely throttled. And looking at the Vikings, there have been only a couple games where they've won pretty comfortably. But there have been games where they have lost big time. If you flash back, 40-3 loss against the Dallas Cowboys, a 41-17 loss against the Green Bay Packers, and you could argue Of those 17 points, how many were deserving? Because a lot of those were garbage points. And it's just a common theme here. The Vikings win super close or they get smacked. And I'm not too sure how you handle this one if you are a Minnesota Vikings fan. The Vikings in this need to find a way to get Kirk Cousins to have 0 interceptions, throw for about 300 plus, maybe 275 plus minimum, while having Dalvin Cook hit about 80 yards rushing, I think. And you also need Justin Jefferson to have a massive game. But who I think is going to be the X factor in this one, the X factor, the forgotten player that allows the Minnesota Vikings to seek another level in this playoff run, is going to be TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson, the tight end that they traded for this year, had 109 yards receiving against the Giants in their last contest. They need to find him often. TJ Hawkinson, probably the third best tight end in the NFL right now, and the youngest out of those top 3, including Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and himself, TJ Hawkinson out of Iowa. TJ Hawkinson needs to do something special this weekend. I'd look to see him playing big and playing often in this one, getting a lot of big moments, receiving, and find him in the red zone as well. A guy you can motion out from tight end to the wide receiver in the slot and just give it a good matchup against a smaller corner or a middle linebacker, outside linebacker is just unfortunately too slow to cover him. I think you know where I'm going with this one. This one sounds like a lot where I'm going, and I want to go that way. I want to trust my gut and go that way. I want to trust the heart and go that way. My brain's telling me something else. My brain's telling me that this game's not as obvious as it should seem. My brain is telling me this is a question mark. This is unknown. What do we do here? And unfortunately, I am not too sure what we do here. And I wonder what you're thinking here in your car right now, on your drive, or simply just listening wherever you are. Do the Minnesota Vikings have enough? Because I want to say they do, because I personally think they do on paper. But if you look back at this Minnesota Vikings team throughout their time this season, there are times they just don't seem like they have it. They get beat, and they get bad. They get beat bad. They get embarrassed on national television. Thankfully, if you're a Vikings fan, this game is not happening too late. It's happening in the 4:30 slot. So it's not a night game. But all playoff games are primetime games if you think about it, because they're nationally televised. If you know anything about Kirk Cousins, he struggles in the primetime games. It is something that is. I'm not sure what it is, but it is a thing nonetheless that we must acknowledge. And then we slide over to this 8:30 p.m. kickoff slot. 8:15 at Paycor Stadium, Cincinnati, Ohio. Last week, we saw these teams meet, and now they meet again. But this is the playoffs. Your regular season record matter no more. You take on the Baltimore Ravens, heading back to Cincinnati to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Ravens are not looking healthy whatsoever. There was a lot of hope last week that a man of the name Lamar Jackson, who we have not seen a lot of this year due to a PCL injury in his knee, he's not coming back. He's going to be done for the season, I think. Then you're missing a wide receiver in Tylan Wallace with his hamstring. And you're also missing a defensive back, Brandon Stevens. And then you look to your second string quarterback, Tyler Huntley, who's played well for the Ravens over his last couple of years with the team. A guy who is able to play a similar style of ball to Lamar Jackson, a bit mobile, a little bit throwing, things like that. But obviously much more limited than comparison to MVP Lamar Jackson. But unfortunately, he's out as well. So they have to turn to their third string quarterback, Brown Jr., I believe, who played against the Bengals last week. And that is just going to be, unfortunately, a nightmare scenario if you are a Baltimore Ravens fans. Because the Baltimore Ravens are a team that was expected to do more this year. A team that expected more, wanted more, and a lot of fans truly demanded more out of them. And unfortunately, they didn't really get it done for those Ravens fans. Last week, the Bengals beat the Ravens 27-16, but in this one, you saw a Bengals team that lit them up in the first half to jump out to a lead of 24-7, and then pulled the dogs off. Limited the playbook. Just played vanilla, played simplistic football. Stuff you see in the preseason because they didn't want to give the Ravens anything more that they needed. Anthony Brown of the Ravens last week, 19 of 44, 286 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of those interceptions, not his fault. Hit his receiver right in the chest, bounced off his shoulder pads into the Cincinnati Bengals defender's hands, who was trailing right behind him. You cannot blame that one on him, but he did not do a great job in this game overall. A lot of those passing yards came late in the game when the Bengals weren't really trying anymore and really backed off and took their foot off the gas. And then you go to the other side with the Ravens as well in the rushing department. Kenyon Drake, 16 carries, 60 yards, 3.8 average, 1 touchdown. It's not anything special. It's just truly not. 16 carries, 60 yards, 3.8 average. He just wasn't doing it. And I expect him to do much less this week when the Bengals are actually trying more, I think. And then we look at the Cincinnati Bengals. A man in Joe Burrow, 25 of 42, 215 yards and a touchdown. An okay performance, a performance that he said just simply wasn't good enough. But that's okay. We got the win, and that's all that mattered. So look for Joe Burrow to be really upset with himself throughout this week of practice and to get kind of angry on Sunday night and kind of go off in the big one. If you remember a little bit ago last year, there was a moment where Ravens defensive coordinator Wink Martindale at the time kind of said, hey, let's not give this man a golden jacket already, referring to calling Joe Burrow a Hall of Famer already, or a soon-to-be Hall of Fame quarterback once his career ends. Joe Burrow turned around in that one and broke NFL records, almost broke the all-time passing record for a single game in the NFL. Definitely one of the modern-day record holders because some records are just so hard to break nonetheless. But a guy who did have a absolutely phenomenal game, a lights-out game versus this Ravens team year ago. And he's done well this year. But expect him to continue on that trend this year and entering the playoffs, a guy looking to get back to the Super Bowl. But Joe Burrow knows better than anyone, you can't look ahead. You got to win the one that's right in front of you. And if we're Cincinnati Bengals fans out there, including myself, including some of my friends and a lot of listeners and like you who support the Bengals, we can't overlook this Baltimore Ravens team. Yes, we should win. Yes, we should blow them out of the water. Yes, it should be clear-cut, simple and dry. Bengals win, Bengals move on. But the Baltimore Ravens are a team out of the AFC North that we face twice a year. And now we're playing them for a third time. A Baltimore Ravens team that has had all week to scheme and come after us, playing with house money, nothing to lose. That's a scary thing if you're on the other side of the ball. So expect this game to be tight early. And I mean tight early. Just the Bengals maybe not having their footing right away and the Baltimore Ravens clicking early because that's what happens in these big underdog and David versus Goliath type matchups. You see David coming with a great plan. And Goliath, kind of like, we're just going to trot into this one. We'll be all right. We'll figure it out as we go. And David starts pounding on him a little bit, getting a couple punches in, makes Goliath a little worried, and it wakes up Goliath. And he comes and just boom, 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 boom. Touchdown, 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 touchdown. Defensive stops everywhere in between. And I think that's what we're going to see happen on Sunday. We're going to see this Ravens team kind of have some success early on, but then hit a brick wall later on in this one. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals will struggle to an extent early on. I'm not saying that they won't do anything early, but it'll take them a little bit to get going. But once they get going, the Bengals steamroll the Baltimore Ravens. Then we switch over to the Monday, January 16th game. The Dallas Cowboys, America's team, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, potentially one of America's most hated teams due to the man playing the quarterback position, a la Tom Brady. This game is at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. The Buccaneers, 8-9. Yes, I said 8-9. A losing record hosting a playoff game versus the 12-5 Dallas Cowboys. 3 teams out of the NFC East make the playoffs this year. The Dallas Cowboys finished second in the NFC East with a 12-5 record. And they get the luxury of traveling to Tampa Bay. And let's be real, that is no luxury. You have to take Tampa Bay on while you're on the road. But you're not taking on just Tampa Bay on the road. You're taking on Tom Brady on the road. You're taking on playoff Tom Brady, who is the greatest quarterback of all time. And then not only him, but you're taking on a team full of veterans who are chasing a Super Bowl ring. The veterans of this team, the Super Bowl ring chasing guys, will find ways to turn back the clock and look like their former selves that we've never seen so far this season. It happens every year. It's like when you see LeBron get into the playoffs with his team and some of these vets turn it back. You see LeBron kind of coasting in the regular season, then come out of his shell and be like, whoa, where has this LeBron been all season? That has been hidden in a little tank inside their body, waiting for this moment when it matters. The Buccaneers were just trying to get here. And once you stick it to the dance, anything can happen. You want a seat at the table. You want into the dance. You want involved. Once you get there, who knows what happens? And that's what we're seeing here today. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to play the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that is extremely dangerous. We're going to take a quick break here, get you rolling on. We're going to almost enter into the next hour. We're going to take about 5-ish minutes. So enjoy some music. Be safe on your drives. We'll catch you guys here in a few moments. When we get back from break, we're going to be talking the playoff games a bit more. We're going to talk predictions, talking about the money line, talking about the spreads, maybe a few player prop bets out there as well. Maybe take a little bit of a dive right before we get out of here into what else is going on this weekend in the sporting landscape. Potentially some NCAA basketball, NBA basketball, just talk state of the sports landscape in general. And we'll get moving on into that 6 o'clock hour where I'll pass it off to the oldies show. But for the next few minutes, enjoy some tunes, and I'll be back with you guys in a moment. All right, everybody. We're back here live on YouTube. Give me one moment, and we're going to get live back here on the air. Welcome back to Weeside 91.5 FM, Richmond's Public Radio. I'm Tyler Smith, host of Keeping It Real with Tyler Smith, a sports talk show here on Weeside 91.5 FM. Here throughout the first hour, we've talked a whole lot about the NFL playoff coverage this weekend, talking about Super Wildcard Weekend, talking San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, talking Minnesota Vikings, New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Dolphins, the Chargers, the Jaguars, and much more. We talked about the biggest stories surrounding these games. We talked about a little bit of everything. Now, getting into it here in the second hour, we're going to do a whole lot more about diving into what is actually going to occur in these games. Talking about my picks, talking about player predictions, player props, if you're into sports gambling, which is now live in Indiana and Ohio, but not for you college athletes like myself. But here we are. The Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. This one is now 49ers favored by 9.5. 9.5 points. That's a good amount of points for an NFL game, especially come playoff time. What's a little more concerning here is that the San Francisco 49ers and Seattle Seahawks both play in the same division, such as the NFC West. The NFC West is a division where these teams face off quite a bit. The 49ers and Seahawks have a deep, deep history. If you think back to a previous playoff game between the two of them, Richard Sherman, Michael Crabtree. There's an infamous interview of Richard Sherman going about how you put that sorry receiver on me. What did you think was going to happen? What did you expect was going to happen during the Legion of Boom days? Now, the Legion of Boom is no more. Russell Wilson, no longer the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. He's the quarterback of the Denver Broncos team that is not in the playoffs. We now have a playoff game for these two teams, not with their old franchise quarterback or the quarterback that we expected to be here, if you ask me, in August. We now have the Seattle Seahawks with the quarterback of Geno Smith establishing himself as a comeback player of the year candidate, taking on the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the most previous NFL draft. Brock Purdy has the ability to lead his San Francisco 49ers team to a potential Super Bowl. Could be Mr. Irrelevant as a Super Bowl MVP, maybe even. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Seattle Seahawks minus 9.5. Seattle Seahawks plus 9.5 is a very interesting bet if you're looking to take a flyer on somebody here. Here's why you would bet plus 9.5 Seattle Seahawks. If you think it's really hard to beat a team twice, if you think it's really, really hard to play a team for a third time and still beat them pretty bad, that's what you're doing. But personally for me, I'm riding with the Seattle Seahawks to lose and not cover. I think the San Francisco 49ers will win this game. Not only win, but I think they'll cover. 9.5 points. If it was 10.5, I'd feel a little bit different. I think the 49ers are going to win this one by 10. I think they'll get a field goal and a touchdown to win in this one. And I also don't think it's going to be a crazily high-scoring game. The over-under 42.5. I'm going to say over on that. Personally, I think it's going to go over, but it's not going to be a shootout. If you can find an alternate spread, alternate over-under, I think that is a great way to go with this one. Maybe catch an alternate over at 39.5. Sometimes there's some good value on that one, I'd say. But personally, I'm going to ride with the San Francisco 49ers. I think Brock Purdy does enough to win this game, but I think he's going to be under on his passing yards. I don't think he's going to throw the ball a lot. I think this game's going to be a whole lot of let me turn around, hand it off to Christian McCaffrey, let me do a bunch of screen passes. If he goes over, it's because he's going to have a couple guys break plays for him. It'll be a Christian McCaffrey turning a little screen pass into a 40-yard gain. A George Kittle catching a little drag or an out route and breaking it big. Or Deebo Samuel taking a jet touch pass, a little jet sweep, basically a handoff almost, but it counts as a pass because it's going forward, and he takes another 25 yards. That's how we see Brock Purdy potentially hitting his passing yards over. But I really like the San Francisco 49ers to win this one. And I really want to say the San Francisco 49ers are one of my dark horse favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. And I think I say dark horse because not a lot of people are feeling them to win it. But I love this 49ers team. I really do. I really think this 49ers team can win it. That's why I'm going to ride with San Francisco 49ers. Excuse my English there. Struggling a little bit. And then you have the next game. The Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The LA Chargers heading to Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida, which is very interesting. The Jaguars, a team who was previous number 1 overall pick, now in the playoffs, won their division, new head coach, get Urban Meyer out of town. See you later. Let's avoid the controversy and get a real coach in this building. And they did. They got Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl winning head coach with the Philadelphia Eagles, a man who came up with the Philly Special, a play to beat Tom Brady and his Patriots with a backup quarterback. Because guess who wasn't playing? You Indianapolis Colts fans? Carson Wentz. So now we see the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. LA going to Jacksonville. Jacksonville are home dogs in this one. Personally, a game I would stay so far away from. I wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole. Let me tell you. Would not touch the game with a 10-foot pole. I'm not against player props in this one, though. I think this could be a good game if you like player props. You want to play on someone's passing yards over, passing unders, rushing overs. I think this game is going to be a shootout. I'd like rushing overs. I like passing overs. Hammer just about any over out there, and I'd be comfortable giving you advice to do so. This one, if I had to give you a pick of who I think is going to win, it's a tough one. But playing at home is what's going to give you the edge in the playoffs, I think. So I think we're going to see the Jacksonville Jaguars win this one. But I'm not sure if they win it by more than a point or two. 2.5 is a very interesting line. Because you're basically saying, in my opinion, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win by a field goal in this one. But are they down when they kick that field goal? Or is it tied up when they kick that field goal to get the lead? That's what it's coming down to. Because if it's like a 27-28 and it goes Jacksonville wins 30-28, the Chargers cover. But say it's 28-28, Jaguars kick a field goal, it goes 31-28. Now the Jaguars cover. This one, if I had to choose someone, I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this one. But truly, I'd stay away from this game with the 10-foot pole. And I'm not lying, not exaggerating, not doing anything. Like, I genuinely feel that this is a game that you should stick away from. From a team over-under, team spread, or team money line. I like betting on the players in this one, but I truly do not enjoy looking at what props, not props, looking at the spread, looking at the money, looking at the total. I don't like that. Maybe the total is the only thing I'd flirt with. But really, I'm sticking with the Jacksonville Jaguars for a pick here. But it's not a pick I'm entirely confident in, though. I will tell you that. And then you shift over to another game. Miami Dolphins taking on the Buffalo Bills. Now, this one is a little interesting because this Dolphins team, 4-1 in their last 5. The Buffalo Bills, 5-0 in their last 5. A Buffalo Bills team that's rallying at the right time, rallying the troops due to that very unfortunate event that we all saw just a week or two ago involving Damar Hamlin. But good news, been released from the hospital, back home in Buffalo, doing pretty good. doing pretty dang good as you can be in this kind of situation, but seems to be making a great recovery. And I pray and we all pray and we all hope that that still continues at this moment and into the near and far futures. But the Buffalo Bills are favored by 13.5 points in this one. 13.5 points is a whole lot of points. And they are minus 1,000 to win this one. So that means you put $10 on it, you're only winning $1, which is kind of crazy to think about. Only winning $1 if you put 10 on the line. That tells you how big of favorites the Buffalo Bills are here. This is a game where I would personally, if I had to make a single bet on this one, it'd just be a bet here. If you're looking for a bet that is more like, let's just see if I can make some money this weekend and I'm okay with losing a couple bucks, put it on the Dolphins to cover. But if you're looking just to make some secure money, the Buffalo Bills to win, the Buffalo Bills to cover the spread, I think is very legitimate, very possible. And the reason, you hear me say it on the show quite a bit, I don't like big spreads in the NFL, especially come playoff time. But the Miami Dolphins are just beat to crap. All their players hurt, on their third string quarterback. Everybody's out, everybody's injured. If they're playing, they're hurting bad. This is this Dolphins team that just got hurt and fell apart at the wrong time. This is the Dolphins team that was really enjoyable to watch, but they've just collapsed down the stretch to nobody's fault, just to unfortunate injuries. Because nobody can control injuries in this game. But that's why I think the Buffalo Bills are a safe pick. I think that they're going to do well in this one. I think the Buffalo Bills might even pull their starters in this one at a certain point because this game very well could get out of hand. And that's where this kind of spread gets a little interesting because if you pull the starters, do the Dolphins keep playing their ones? Do the Dolphins kind of give up too? Who knows? If I know Mike McDaniel a little bit, I'm thinking he's going to continue playing his guys. He's the head coach of the Dolphins. So that is where it gets tricky, where the Dolphins might be able to cover versus the Bills' second and third stringers. But just taking a look at the analytics on the betting side of things here, 88% of the money is on the spread. Buffalo, 88% of money is picking the Buffalo Bills to cover the spread. And I want to say 79% of the bets are on Buffalo to cover the spread as well. So if you want to ride the public on this one, everyone's basically saying that the Buffalo Bills are going to get this one. And then you take a next look here. In the next contest we got going on is the New York Giants taking on the Minnesota Vikings. This game is an intriguing one to me. -3 Vikings, +3 Giants. The Minnesota Vikings are favored at home against a team that they beat by a field goal a handful of weeks ago. This Minnesota Vikings team is a team known for beating teams close or getting beat bad and nowhere in between. This Minnesota Vikings team is a team that is now 3-2 in their last 5, taking on a Giants team that's 2-3 in their last 5. But you do have to remember that the Giants just faced the Philadelphia Eagles, the 1 seed out of the NFC. But nonetheless, here we are, Minnesota Vikings taking on the Giants. Giants have to travel up to Minnesota, but it's a dome. Do remember that, U.S. Bank Stadium. It's a dome. It's a closed stadium. And the better question to ask is, do you trust Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins is kind of a hit-and-miss quarterback in these kind of situations. And I don't know if I can trust him. This is a game where it's a toss-up. I don't think it's a +3, -3. I think this game to me is more of a pick 'em. And here's why I think it's more of a pick 'em. Excuse me. The reason why I say it's more of a pick 'em here is due to this. Percentage of money is on the New York Giants. So the money is with the New York Giants, but the public is going with Minnesota. So the number of bets is going with Minnesota. More people think Minnesota will cover. But the bigger bettors, the people who put big money on this game, think that the New York Giants are going to do that. So some of these gambling sharks, some of these guys that are putting a ton of money on this are going with the Giants. And that's where concern arises for me. That's just where concern arises for me. I do ride with the Vikings in this one, though. I think the Vikings are going to click. I think the new Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, will be able to rally up his team. Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, formerly the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. And the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay just announced that Sean McVay intends on returning to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. And you might be asking, Tyler, why do we need to announce that? It's because there was quite some time here where he was unsure if he was going to come back next year. There were thoughts and talks about him going into the television world, being an analyst, being a pundit of the NFL. But he returns back to the Los Angeles Rams for at least one more season. And this Kevin O'Connell team in the Minnesota Vikings are a team that has an elite and dangerous and scary offense. And if this offense can get humming and clicking right away, I think the Minnesota Vikings can blow the Giants out of the water. Although, I think this game will be tough. I think this game will be tight. This will be a fun one to watch Sunday. But I'm going to go ride with the Minnesota Vikings. And then we get into the late game on Sunday, Sunday Night Football. Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh taking on Zach Taylor. Here's why I want to ride the Bengals in this one. The Bengals are now minus 8.5, taking on a team they faced a week ago, a team that they dominated a week ago with the minimal playbook. Although the Ravens knew they were in and they kind of rested some guys. They're going to have to face Brown again, who's the quarterback of the Ravens, who had I wouldn't say great game, wouldn't say a horrible game, but had a meh kind of game. What would you expect from a third-string quarterback just being tossed out there? The Baltimore Ravens are now without Lamar Jackson, their MVP quarterback. They're now out with Tyler Huntley, who is as close to a Lamar Jackson for a backup kind of level quarterback you can have. He resembles him in little bits, resembles him in moments, but to a far lesser talent level, which is no disrespect to Tyler Huntley. But he's just simply not an MVP quarterback that Lamar Jackson is. And I think most of you guys know that as well. So now we see Brown stepping in at quarterback. Brown out of Oregon. A guy who's mobile, but a guy who had 2 interceptions last week. One of those interceptions, not completely his fault, but nonetheless, a Ravens offense that looked abysmal for quite some time and could not protect the ball, could not manage the ball, which allowed the Cincinnati Bengals to jump out on them early. But this is going to be the third time these two teams have faced, and they face back-to-back weeks now. The Cincinnati Bengals do win this one. The Cincinnati Bengals cover in this one as well. But here's where you just need to remember. This game will be tight for the first half. Will be tight during the first half. It'll be uneasy for Bengals fans, in my opinion. And that's just because I was mentioning earlier, the David and Goliath type deals. The Baltimore Ravens are the underdog playing with house money, nothing to lose. They'll come out with a scripted game plan, and they'll stick around for a little bit. They'll stick around. The Bengals will struggle to find their footing in this one, but once the Bengals find their footing in this one, they're going to take off and fly and just be flashing colors and dominate all over the field in this one. That's why I'm going to ride with the Cincinnati Bengals in this one, not only because I'm a Bengals fan, and sure, I want to see the Bengals win. Absolutely. Sign me up every single time I can get a Bengals win. I want a Bengals win. And I think they're going to win this one as well. And then we shift gears and we look over to Monday night. Monday night, Dallas Cowboys taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Dallas Cowboys are going to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers are favored. So, in my opinion, I'm favoring them to win. They're favored in my head to win. But Vegas has them as dogs. Vegas has the 12-5 Dallas Cowboys as favorites over the 8-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, rightfully so from a record standpoint and what we've seen a lot this season. But you're asking me to bet against Tom Brady. I'm not too sure about that one. You're asking me to bet against not only Tom Brady, but all the other veteran players of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ring chasing, trying to get a ring, trying to get a second ring even, if they've been around Tampa Bay for quite some time. So here's what I think. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this one Monday night at home. A team who doesn't even have a winning record entering the playoffs defeats the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys will crumble in the first round, as per usual. There's a stat that's been flying around this week. The Dallas Cowboys haven't won a road playoff game since the 90s or the 80s. And for those of you listening, I wasn't even alive yet. So that should let you know how long it's been. And that's why I'm riding with the man who has dominated my entire lifetime. The man who is the greatest quarterback of all time. The man in the arena. Tom Brady. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will win this one. They will find a way to win. And in a large part, the reason why they win is Dak Prescott's inability to secure the ball and protect the ball. Dak Prescott leads the NFL in interceptions, and he's missed 5 games this season. Dak Prescott will turn the ball over in this one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will take advantage. The Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers will win this one. 0 questions asked Monday night. And that is a pick that I'm extremely confident in. And also, leaving you all with one last little note here. An early Super Bowl prediction, I may add. The San Francisco 49ers will come out of the NFC. And I think as well on the AFC side of things, Cincinnati Bengals or the Buffalo Bills will come out of the AFC. And to be honest, I think it's a toss-up. I think the Bengals have the best of them, but the Bengals will have to go on the road. And that is the only thing that is daunting to me. Taking on a potential Buffalo Bills team, not at Paycor Stadium or what I would still like to call it, Paul Brown Stadium. As we enter the 5:15 to 5:20 slot here, we're going to take a quick break, play some tunes for you. We're going to come back, another 15 minutes or so, talk about the college sports landscape, some other sports going on this weekend, because we're going to be watching a whole lot of NFL this weekend, don't get me wrong, and talking about it this next following weeks. But we're going to start shifting in, talking some of the other sports going on in the world right now. So stick with us here on Leaside 91.5 FM, Richmond's Public Radio. I'm Tyler Smith, host of Keeping It Real with Tyler Smith. We'll be back with you here in a little bit. Enjoy some tunes. We'll be back in about 5. Take care. Welcome back to Weeside 91.5 FM. My name is Tyler Smith, host of Keeping It Real with Tyler Smith here on Weeside 91.5 FM, Richmond's public radio. Throughout the last hour and a half or so, we've been talking a whole lot of NFL, talking about the NFL playoffs this weekend, Super Wildcard Weekend, talking about the games, talking about the stories surrounding the games, as well as some major NFL headlines throughout this week. A lot of head coaches fired, a lot of open positions. Eric Bieniemy just got out of an interview with the Indianapolis Colts recently. Could he be the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, or will we see Jeff Saturday potentially again? Who knows? Obviously, this is a big-time NFL season, but there's a whole lot more going on in the world, in the sporting world nonetheless, than the NFL. Throughout the next 15 to 20 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about what else is going on in the sporting landscape. Talking about some college basketball, my Dayton Flyers going on a run, getting hot right about the right time, and some many other teams. I know we got a bunch of IU basketball listeners out there and so on and so forth. We're going to talk some NBA, a little bit of other things. But another cool story out there, maybe you haven't seen it yet. Indianapolis Pacers, Bankers Life Fieldhouse. No, it's not called Bankers Life Fieldhouse anymore. I believe it's the Gainbridge Fieldhouse, something of the sort. They'll be hosting the 2024 NBA All-Star Games. Not this one in the winter, but next year in the wintertime. Indianapolis welcomes the NBA All-Star Game and NBA All-Star festivities nonetheless. But now, some major stories going on here. Sean McVay. Last NFL story we'll probably touch on here. Two more, excuse me. Sean McVay going to be staying with the Los Angeles Rams as head coach. Not going into the TV world yet, will return next year as head coach. Secondly, the Green Bay Packers, not ready to let Aaron Rodgers go just yet. How much longer will he be around? We're not sure, but rumors sound like he will be coming back for at least one more season. Now, as we shift on over into what's going on in the NBA. NBA tonight, Pelicans, Pistons, Hawks, Pacers, Knicks, Wizards, Warriors, Spurs, Thunder, Bulls, Suns, Timberwolves. Whole lot going on. All those games tipping off about 7:30 into the 8 o'clock hour. New Orleans Pelicans are favored by 6 points. The Atlanta Hawks favored by 2.5 points over our local Indianapolis Pacers. Then you have the Knicks taking on the Wizards. The New York Knicks favored by 4.5. Warriors taking on the Spurs. Golden State favored by 8.5. Then you have the Thunder taking on the Bulls. Chicago favored by 4.5 because the Oklahoma City Thunder haven't had their 51st round draft pick selected yet. They have draft pick slide to take 8th graders, and they're going to take about 8 8th graders here in the near future, it's going to seem like. Because they are trading for every single draft pick in the 2030s. And we'll be seeing them with a team, hopefully one day, that can dominate the NBA with how many first-round draft picks they have available to them. In the late games on this Friday night NBA slate, you got the Magic taking on the Jazz. The Utah Jazz favored by 6 points. The Nuggets taking on the Clippers, 10 p.m. The Los Angeles Clippers favored by 5, led by Kawhi Leonard and company. Then you have the Houston Rockets taking on the Kings. Sacramento Kings favored by 9.5. Then we look over the NCAA men's basketball slate. Indiana's own, third-ranked Purdue Boilermakers, favored by 15 over Nebraska at home. Indianapolis's Butler Bulldogs, 1.5-point dogs to Villanova at home. Michigan State takes on Illinois. Illinois favored by 6.5 points. And then you have the game that I'm paying the most attention to. Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, taking on the Dayton Flyers. The Dayton Flyers are favored by 7 points in this one. Then you have Utah State taking on Nevada. Nevada favored by 2.5, and that is going to be the last game of the NCAA men's basketball slate, as we have Yale taking on Cornell. Currently, Yale winning 28-17. We're going to jump into this VCU Dayton game. Dayton's going to play VCU tonight after Deron Holmes finally lighting it up now, finally turning it on, finally finding his step, getting his beat going. 32-point performance in his last game. This Dayton Flyers team is somebody you need to look out for come March. Dayton Flyers 12-5, 4-0 in the Atlantic 10 conference play, taking on the Virginia Commonwealth University Rams, 12-5, 3-1 in A10 conference play. Dayton Flyers are 83% matchup predicted to win this one. But the bigger story here, the Dayton Flyers turning it on finally, finding their beat after a rocky start of the season, to say the least. The Dayton Flyers, a team that we're extremely, extremely excited to see. Sitting atop of the A10 with VCU, one game back, trailing, looking to make something happen here tonight. Deron Holmes has been a leader of this team in the points category with 19.8 per game. Then you have the forward Tousmani Kamara with 9.2 rebounds per game. And then sliding into the assist side, you have Big Mike out of Mongolia, the freshman, with 3.1 assists per game. This is a University of Dayton Flyers team that has never played its best basketball yet, and they're starting to get there. They have a lot of great players still injured and on the bench. There have been games this season where they've played 6 men or 7 men deep. And this is a team that normally has about 10 to 12 deep, consistent, and legitimate ball players. This Dayton Flyers team is going to be somebody to watch out for come March. And then we take a little slide over here and we take a peek at the VCU side of things in this contest. Johns Jr., the forward for VCU, 12.4 points per game, 52.9 field goal percentage with 79% free throw percentage. And then you get the rebound side of things. You got Jay DeLoach, another forward, a power forward for VCU. Around about 6 boards, primarily on the defensive glass. Then looking at the assists, you have Jackson, the guard, 1.8 assists per game. This is a VCU team that is very much team-oriented. Not a lot of big stars, but a team that always sticks around and is always kind of tough in the Atlantic 10 Conference. Always looking to make something happen and sticking around. And then we shift over to some other local games going on tonight. We're going to go talk Villanova-Butler. Villanova-Butler, and then we're going to hit Nebraska-Purdue and get on out of here. Villanova taking on Butler, 7 p.m., FS1. Villanova's favored by 1.5 points. The 8-9 Villanova take on the 2-4. Villanova 2-4 in conference, take on the 2-5 in conference. Butler Bulldogs, who are 10-8 on the season. The Butler Bulldogs taking on Villanova. It's a big game. Big game here in the Big East. In the Big East right now, Butler sitting second to last. Villanova, fourth to last. But obviously not a lot of difference here. Teams in the Big East like Providence and Xavier have been running the table of late, with Marquette not too far behind. But you got to get Butler and Villanova catching up. 2 household names. Butler could be dangerous this year, but if they make their run in the March Madness tournament, they must win the Big East tournament. They're not going to be able to win it, and you have enough wins in the regular season to get into March Madness. They'd have to win the Big East tournament, I believe. In this one, Butler is heavily favored, though. Match predictor has Butler giving them a 68.2% chance to win, even though they are 1.5-point dogs at home. So in this one, the Butler Bulldogs need to be led by Taylor and Bates. Taylor and Bates got to have themselves a night, and you must limit Daniels, the guard for Villanova. 16.4 points per game, got to limit him. Got to make sure he doesn't kill you out there. 41% from the field, which is quite impressive. You just got to do something to limit him. Do something to limit him in any way you can. And then we shift over gears to the final game we'll be talking about here tonight. Nebraska traveling to Purdue. The third-ranked Purdue Boilermakers, favored by 15. This game's going to be on the Big Ten Network. The 9-8 Nebraska Cornhuskers, 2-4 in the Big Ten, are going to be taking on 15-1 on the season, but 4-1 in conference play, Purdue Boilermakers. Purdue Boilermakers are heavily favored in this one. When I say heavily favored, I mean heavily favored. 94% chance to win, and obviously, as I mentioned a moment ago, 15-point spread. Purdue's only loss came at home this year, which is always quite surprising to see. A team as good as Purdue, who was once ranked number one in the polls, taking a loss at home is never something you'd like to see. They've done well this year, though. They beat Nebraska early on, 65-62 by 3. So this game could be a tough one for them. Could maybe give them some fits. But once again, this is a Purdue team that has just been kind of dominant all year long. 70 points to 80 points is always a consistent number for them. Just looking to make something happen. A big win early on this year against the 6th-ranked Gonzaga team, then a Duke team. And it's just that Purdue is going to be one of those teams now that just becomes kind of a more household name. Purdue's done well over the last handful of seasons. And Purdue's going to continue to ride that wave. Purdue is going to come into tonight's game and get a big win tonight, I think. I think they're going to get a big win. They had a 1-point loss to Rutgers, a kind of a fluky performance. One of the only games they didn't score over 70 points in. But tonight, Purdue's continuing to be on the right track. They'll kill the Nebraska Cornhuskers, I believe, and defeat them by more than 15. This Nebraska team played them tight early on, but this Purdue team is going to get them at home. Purdue is going to want to run and kill this team. They need to get out there with a statement win and get back on track. As they still sit at the top of the Big Ten, but they need to continue to stay on this track. They can't afford to lose any ground in the Big Ten because the Big Ten is now becoming one of the best basketball conferences in the country. And Edey, the center, is going to be a big one for Purdue. Can he get over 21 points? He averages 21.9. Can he get somewhere between 25 and 15 tonight? If you see Eddie get maybe 25 to 15 tonight, this game's going to be a clear lock for the Boilermakers. And that kind of covers some of the local events going on this weekend. Please enjoy your weekend. Please be safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your drive home, rest of your drive out to wherever you're going. Thank you for listening to me for the last hour and a half or so. I'm going to send you guys off to the Oldies show. They're going to be popping on here about 6 o'clock. I'm going to allow them to get in here and get set up. And they always do a great show. Some legends around the station, legends within the Richmond community as well. And always, it's been a pleasure. I'm Tyler Smith, host of Keeping It Real with Tyler Smith. We'll be back with you guys next Friday, 4 to 6. And also, be looking out for some content on some of our other programs as well throughout social media. Until next time, I'm Tyler Smith. Take care, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Take care.